What if I told you the largest empire the world had ever seen didn't rise because of endless gold? Not because of brutal conquest, and not even because of superior weapons. What if the real secret behind the Persian Empire was something far more modern, something that still decides which nations rise and which ones collapse? For over 2 centuries, the Persian Empire ruled nearly half the known world. From the Indus Valley to the Mediterranean, from deserts to mountains to rich river valleys, and yet it ruled with remarkably low rebellion, stable taxes, and a level of economic coordination that wouldn't be seen again for over 1,000 years. So how did an ancient empire solve problems that modern governments still struggle with today? The answer, isn't what you think, and the twist comes at the very moment when the system started to break. Before Persia, empires ruled through fear. Assyria burned cities. Babylon extracted tribute. Egypt relied on centralized temple economies. But these systems had one fatal flaw. They squeezed conquered regions until revolt became inevitable. Then, in the 6th century BCE, a relatively unknown ruler changed everything. His name was Cyrus the Great. Instead of destroying local economies, Cyrus did something radical. He preserved them. He allowed cities to keep their religions, their laws, and most importantly, their economic systems. It was strategy. Because Cyrus understood a principle that most conquerors ignored: wealth flows best when people feel secure. That principle would become the economic backbone of the Persian Empire. The Persian economic system didn't start with coins or taxes. It started with administration. Cyrus and his successors divided the empire into provinces called satrapies. Each satrapy had a governor, a military commander, and a financial officer deliberately separated so no one could seize total control. This separation reduced corruption and rebellion, but the real innovation was taxation. Instead of random tribute, Persia introduced predictable, fixed taxes based on a region's productivity. Farm regions paid in grain. Trade cities paid in silver. Resource zones paid in raw materials. For the first time, taxation was calculated, not arbitrary. That predictability allowed local economies to grow, and growth meant more revenue for the empire. Cause and effect were clear. Predictable taxes gives economic planning gives higher output gives stable, imperial revenue. This was not an empire draining wealth. It was an empire organizing wealth. Under Darius I, the system reached its peak. Darius standardized weights, measures, and introduced one of the world's first imperial currencies, the gold daric. But money alone wasn't the secret. Infrastructure was. Persia built 2,500 kilometers of royal roads relay stations, every 25 to 30 miles state-sponsored courier systems faster than most armies. Trade exploded. Goods moved faster. Information traveled quicker. Prices stabilized across regions. This created what we would now call a continental market. Merchants trusted Persian roads, farmers trusted Persian taxes, cities trusted Persian protection. And the empire grew richer not by hoarding but by circulation. However, the success planted the seeds of future strain. Because as the empire expanded, so did its costs. By the late 5th century BCE, Persia had a problem that looks very familiar today. The empire was too big. Military spending surged. Permanent armies, naval fleets, garrisons across 3 continents, taxes began to rise subtly at first. Satraps demanded more. Local elites lost autonomy. Corruption crept back into the system. To fund wars against Greece, Persia increasingly relied on silver extraction and monetary expansion. This caused inflation. Wages lagged. Local trust weakened. Trade slowed. The system that once encouraged growth now strained it. Cause and effect reversed. Higher military costs gives higher taxes gives economic friction. Economic friction gives instability. The Persian economy didn't collapse overnight, it hollowed out. When Alexander the Great invaded in the 330s BCE, Persia still looked powerful. But economically it was brittle. Supply lines failed, local governors surrendered, cities opened gates. Alexander didn't defeat Persia with superior numbers. He exploited an empire whose economic glue had already weakened. The roads remained, the administrative systems survived, but the trust was gone. Empires don't fall when they lose battles. They fall when their economic systems stop working for the people inside them. Persian rulers attempted reforms. They replaced governors, adjusted taxes, tightened central control. But these were symptoms, not causes. They never restored the original balance between imperial revenue and local prosperity. The system that once rewarded cooperation had become extractive, and once that trust breaks, history shows it rarely returns. Today, governments face the same dilemma Persia faced 2,500 years ago. Infrastructure builds growth. Predictable rules encourage markets. Overextension strains systems. Modern data shows that empires and superpowers decline not from invasion, but from economic overreach. Military spending spikes precede fiscal crises. Trust in institutions collapses before currencies do. The Persian story isn't ancient history. It's a warning written in stone and silver. Here are 3 lessons from the Persian Empire's economic secret. 1. Stability beats extraction. Predictable systems outperform brute force. 2. Infrastructure is power, but only if it serves growth, not control. 3. When an economy stops working for the people, no army can save the empire. The Persian Empire mastered economics before the world had a word for it, but it also proved that no system survives if it forgets why it was built in the first place. And that raises a final question. Are modern economies learning from Persia, or repeating its final mistake? If you want more deep dives into the hidden systems that shaped history, money, power, and collapse, subscribe, like, and stay curious, because history doesn't repeat, it rhymes.